we're gonna talk about Liberty Hangout. Oh my god. Liberty Hang. Oh my god. So the Liberty Hangout claims to be libertarian, but they're really extremely far right. Let's see if we could find some. And they claim to be Christian. Here's a cringe Christian. Since LGBTQ gang is trending, shout out to the original LGBTQ gang, Sodom and Gomorrah. Wow, edgy. Oh wait, here's. Remember, guys, this is a libertarian platform right here. It is far more preferable to live under a monarchy than a democracy. Democracy is mob rule of the government estate, and it is a soft form of communism. But anyway, Liberty Hangout, not really, like, they don't argue smart points. They don't argue from sources. They don't really bring up data. Sometimes they'll do the whole, like, science says that, like, chromosomes and stuff, but that's it. And then, clearly not, like, I don't know. It doesn't seem like they care much about education. Straight white Christian males are the most oppressed minority in the United States. By the way, they retweeted their LGBTQ gang burn and said, Pete Buttigieg would know about tornadoes of fire. Our agenda is very blunt. Our goal is to infiltrate libertarianism and make it right-wing. Okay, so it's wild how many people read that passage and totally miss that it's about gang rape and not homosexuality. Exactly. Yeah, let's break that down real quick for those in the chat that don't know. There's like 5 verses that people use to say that being gay is wrong in the Bible. One of them, and they're all, if you read them in the context, fall apart. You realize they're not talking about your gay neighbor with a boyfriend. One of them is Sodom and Gomorrah. And they'll say, well, God wanted to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah because they were evil. And then he sent the angels, these angels to go get Lot out of the city before he destroys it. And the angels went into the city, and then the men in Sodom surrounded them and surrounded the house that Lot and his family just welcomed the angels inside of. And the men outside the house said, bring out the angels so that we may have sex with them. And Lot was like, nah. And then some other stuff happened, and then Sodom got destroyed. And some people like to point to that and say, hey, yo, that was their sin was being gay because they wanted to have sex with those angels. First of all, angels have genders? Is that real? Is that a thing? I don't think so. Second of all, the sin there wasn't that a person with a penis was attracted to someone else with a penis, but that they wanted to rape them. That was like, it was against their will. That was the sin. And by the way, before we get into what we wanted to get into, let me, the sin of Sodom, Ezekiel says, here's what the sin of Sodom is. In Ezekiel 16. Now this was the sin of your sister Sodom. She and her daughters were arrogant, overfed, and unconcerned. They did not help the poor and needy. They were haughty and did detestable things before me. Therefore I did away with them, as you have seen. America, in their imperialism and their economic inequality and their discrimination, is more of what's being described here than a dude having sex with a dude or something. So, Liberty Hangout is so strange. Here we go. It's called College Students Have No Morals. Now, there's a few clips from this video that have gone viral on Twitter, so I'm sure everyone in the chat has probably, or may have, seen a couple of these clips already. So this entire video is her approaching college students and like, hey, trans people. And they're like, yeah, no problem. And it's supposed to make them look like they're immoral, have no morals, or they like don't know what they're talking about. But it's a cell phone. It just makes her look like she has no morals and has no idea what she's talking about. So Here we go. By the way, there's a few people who've like talked about this video, so I'm glad there's people in here that haven't seen this full video. But here's how we're gonna make it our own. We're also gonna read from Galatians. So, let's see here. Actually, let's play the intro first, and then I'll show you what I'm talking about.
What do you think about starting an initiative on campus here at UK to be more inclusive to women who have penises, and we can put urinals in the women's restroom for them?
Sounds fantastic.
Oh, does it?
Yeah.
Okay. What about, let's take it one step close, more for inclusivity here on campus, and put free tampons and pads in the men's restroom for men who have periods?
Sounds great.
Okay. You don't see anything wrong with those statements?
No.
What men do you know
like
with periods?
General use ones like in Willie T have pads. I use them pretty often. So.
What do you think about putting
There we go.
urinals in the women's restroom for women who have penises?
That's fine. If it makes them feel comfortable, I don't mind. Like I don't really care about it.
Are you willing to accept that some women do have penises?
Yeah.
As opposed to make the college students look like they have no morals, and that they don't know what they're talking about, and that they're uneducated. But nuh-uh. So she asks a bunch of students that question, and she continues to self-own herself. Let's look at Galatians, my friends. Paul wrote a letter to the church in Galatia in response to this group of teachers that called Judaizers, because they were saying that they're a Christian, going around to Christian communities saying, in order for you to be really Christian, for you to be really a child of God through Christ, you have to be circumcised, and you have to follow Jewish dietary laws and follow the whole Jewish law in order to be a real child of God through Christ. Telling all these Greek Gentile Christians that. And first of all, that's not Christianity. And second of all, that's not even Judaism. That's not even what Judaism was preaching, that you need to follow the law in order to be a child of God. For them, it was, we are children of God, and therefore we follow the law, our Jewish law. We follow the Torah, which leads us to walk humbly with our God and love justice and love mercy. And so the Judaizers, it wasn't Christians trying to make Christianity Jewish. It was Christian, a whole new sect, trying to combine it. Really tired of people making everything about genitals. My point here is they've been trying to make it about genitals for thousands of years, which is ridiculous. Genitals aren't really that important, to be honest. Yes, and my argument is that Paul and other Christians, one of the unique, foundational, amazing messages of the origin of Christianity was exactly what Snapples and Catch just wrote in chat. Genitals aren't really that important, TBH. That was one of the big messages of early Christianity. And that is especially clear in Galatians. So he's writing to this church that has been deceived by these Judaizers. And he says, yes, all genitals are great regardless who they're on. What up, church, to the churches in Galatia? Peace be with you. You know the deal. I'm astonished that you are... Paul probably, that's the curses. That is the summary of Galatians. So he says, I'm astonished that you are so quickly deserting the one who called you to live in the grace of Christ and are turning to a different gospel, which is really no gospel at all. Evidently, some people are throwing you into confusion and are trying to pervert the gospel of Christ. But even if we or an angel from heaven should preach a gospel other than the one we preached to you, let them be under God's curse, as we have already said. So now I say again. And then after 14 years, I went up again to Jerusalem, this time with Barnabas. I took Titus along also. I went in response to a revelation and meeting privately with those esteemed as leaders. I presented to them the gospel I preach among the Gentiles. I wanted to be sure I was not running and had not been running my race in vain. Yet not even Titus, who was with me, was compelled to be circumcised, even though he was a Greek. So he wasn't circumcised, was compelled to be circumcised. This matter arose because some false believers had infiltrated our ranks to spy on the freedom we have in Christ Jesus and to make us slaves. We did not give in to them for a moment so that the truth of the gospel might be preserved for you. Check out this innuendo, guys. Realize what he's saying here. Me and my homie Titus, not circumcised, we went to evangelize in the city, and some false believers infiltrated our ranks to spy on the freedom we have in Christ Jesus. In other words, to watch us undress and get changed to see if Titus was circumcised or not. But he words it as to spy on the freedom we have in Christ Jesus. So they're infiltrating them, and they're like watching them to see if if Paul, good Jew Paul, was hanging out with some Greeks who weren't circumcised, so that they could call Paul out and say, how could you be preaching with these guys, evangelizing with these guys if they're not circumcised? Which is why he calls them false believers. James, Cephas, and John, those esteemed as pillars, gave me and Barnabas the right hand of fellowship when they recognized the grace given to me. They agreed that we should go to the Gentiles, and they, Peter and them, go to the circumcised. All they asked was that we should continue to remember the poor, the very thing I'd been eager to do all along. So he's like, yeah, those guys held in high esteem, they get sent to preach to the people who are circumcised, the Jewish people, to convert them. I'm going to the Gentiles, the uncircumcised. And when they sent me to do it, they didn't tell me to tell them to be circumcised. All they told me, the guys that you hold in high esteem, was just to remember the poor. That's it. So, thousands of years, people are acting like genitals matter. And like I said, I feel like one of the earliest messages of the origin of Christianity, radical message, was that genitals actually don't matter. You do not need to change your genitals in order to be a child of God in Christ. And you don't, and if you do change your genitals, you don't need to try to change them back. You don't need to, whatever state your genitals are in, completely fine. And if you change it, whatever, completely fine. I feel like that's like the beginning of like one of the radical messages of Christianity. And yet now we have Christians that make it seem like, oh, no, they do matter actually. And we have people like this. Liberty Hangout. Kent State Gun Girl. Yeah, there's no male and female in Christ. Screw you patriarchy. Screw you gender binary. Exactly. Now we got this girl, Kent State Gun Girl, Liberty Hangout, going to all these college students being like, genitals though. Please, no more LH. We got to do it, Jax Master.
What do you think? Should we be more inclusive towards trans people by putting urinals in the women's restroom?
I mean, they got to do what they got to do, so I mean...
Would you like to have tampons in the men's restroom?
I don't see an issue with it.
Do you think we should pass an initiative here on campus to put tampons and pads in men's restrooms for men who have periods?
I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do, right? I mean, men having periods and men having a period.
You gotta do what you gotta do. First of all, all these college students are more progressive than her, which is what we like. But it's also hilarious. They're all also more libertarian than she is. Just let people do what they gotta do. It's not my business. None of my business. Let them do what they want to do. Whatever. Not my problem. Whatever. If it's in the budget, sure, whatever. I don't care.
Okay, so we should or shouldn't?
Real libertarian.
I mean, I don't really care.
I don't really care.
What about tampons and pads in men's restroom for men who have periods?
If you're really getting that worked up about it, why does it matter? Like, I don't care. It's just sitting there. I'm not going to take it.
Okay, so we should provide men with tampons.
I mean, if a dude wants a tampon for some reason, he can have a tampon. That's not my business.
What would he use it for?
I don't know. That's his problem.
What would he use a pad for?
His problem.
Do you think they should seek medical advice if they're
Absolute
having bleeding?
king.
I mean, if they want to, I don't really care. Why should I care?
I don't know. I care about people. If they're
Yeah,
bleeding out of their penis, I
Yeah.
would want to.
I care about people's personal rights. They can do whatever they want. It's none of my business.
So are you a progressive?
I'm a big conservative.
Ooh.
Are you Caitlin Bennett?
A big.
Because you look like her.
I look just like her. Talking about assuming,
Yeah.
should we put urinals in women's restrooms here on campus to make women with penises feel more comfortable?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to make everyone feel included.
I thought you said you were a huge conservative.
I am.
Dripping?
That's the thing. That's the thing. You could be a conservative and be totally cool with trans people because it's not a big deal. There we go. It's done, Jax. It's over with. Let's get back to Galatians. So then he says, so in Christ Jesus, you are all children of God through faith, not through being circumcised or uncircumcised, not through what is going on inside your pants, not through genitals, through faith. For all of you who are baptized into Christ have clothed yourselves with Christ. It's not if you're a male clothes, you're Paul wrote Galatians. It's not if you're a male clothes that you're in Christ. It's not if you're in female clothes that you're in Christ. It's not if you're in rich clothes that you're in Christ or poor clothes you're in Christ. Because you've clothed yourselves with Christ. No matter how you dress, no matter how you present yourself, we are all clothed with Christ. So you can clothe yourself however you want. There is neither Jew nor Gentile, neither slave nor free, nor is there male or female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus. If you belong to Christ, then you are Abraham's seed and heirs according to the promise. Here's the thing, too, that I'll say. This is also where we get the idea of, like, your identity is in Christ. I think he says that kind of over here, too. But where people say, yeah, your identity is in Christ. My identity is in Christ. Which some Christians misinterpret this idea of your identity being in Christ as a way of shutting down people with different identities. That saying has been so yeah, that's what I'm saying. Especially to shut down LGBTQ people. Like, for example, I know plenty of gay people who have been told by their Christian family members, okay, yeah, you're gay, but like your whole identity shouldn't be in that. Like, your identity's in Christ. And it's like, yeah, but I'm gay too, though. Yeah, sure, my identity's in Christ, and I'm gay. Yeah, but don't talk about it. You don't have to put your whole identity in it. It's just a way of saying, shut up. Your identity's in Christ. Don't talk about it. It's so ridiculous. And so it's like, that's not what it's saying. Because here's the thing. Like, when we go back. Jew nor Gentile, slave nor free, male or female. You still have these identities. Those identities don't go away. It's not saying by being in Christ, those identity markers go away. It's saying all these identity markers are not conditions that decide who's in and who's not. That's what it is saying here. That you still are these things, but that part of your identity doesn't decide who's in or who's not. So it's like, yes, you're gay, you're lesbian, you're bi, you're trans, you're NB, whatever. And still in Christ, and when we talk about you're in Christ Jesus, we say those are still very significant, relevant parts of your identity, but it doesn't determine whether you're in or whether you're out. It doesn't matter. All are one in Christ Jesus. And so it's so interesting, where it's like the beginning of the Christian tradition is this proclamation that it doesn't matter what's in your pants. Whether you changed it or not, or whether you want to change it or not, it doesn't determine whether you're in or not. And yet, we have these Christians talking about, arguing about what's in your pants in a different way. In 2020, or the last, for a while they've been, but it's like, yeah, and this is also why I just feel like Christians should have been the first one to be all about trans rights. Absolutely. I mean, I'm sure it was scary to a lot of cis Christians in the beginning, but it's like we should have worked to get over that fear early, hella early. And so I feel like because I dig the message of Paul, that Paul gives in the book of Galatians, of course, we're for trans rights. That's the Christian thing to do. I don't support trans rights in spite of my Christianity. I support it because of my Christianity, absolutely. And I wish more Christians were on board with that. Some Christians feel like they need to sacrifice some of their Christian tradition in order to be more open to people, or in order to be more progressive, when it's like this Christian spirituality, following the way of Jesus, should lead you to be more open and embracive of people who are different than you, people of different faiths, people of different identities. Also, what is that verse that Jesus says about people born as eunuchs? Jesus replied, "Not everyone could accept this word, but only those to whom it has been given. For there are eunuchs who were born that way, and there are eunuchs who have been made eunuchs by others. And there are those who choose to live like eunuchs for the sake of the kingdom of heaven. The one who can accept this should accept it." So I've heard some transgender Christians embrace this verse to say he's talking about us, which of course is like not literally talking about us, but you can interpret this way to be supportive of trans people. But I think at a basic level, you can definitely argue that this is saying people with diverse bodies are welcome, are part of it. Diverse bodies are in.